Hello guys, welcome to round number 2 of FIDE Candidates 2026. So let's take a look at some of the games that were played. It was quite a peaceful day, so not a lot of decisive results. I mean, nothing at all. But let's take a look at what happened during the day. So we have French defense between Wei Yi and Pragg. Very interesting position on this level. And here it was kind of fun because there was some d takes c5, and after bishop c5, bishop h7. Quite an interesting line where king h7, there was this, knight c5, and queen f2. And now ideas of knight g5 and queen h4. I assume Pragg prepared something, and he assumed that probably, let's say, if knight c5, knight g5, then king g8, and suddenly queen f2 now is bad due to f6. While here, let's say queen f2, you play f6, trying to prevent this. There is queen c5. So if knight goes back, there is knight g5, this, and queen h4. And white wins the game. So as opposed to that, we got f6, e takes f6, knight f6, king h1, b6, and it's more or less equal position. Bishop e2, bishop f3, f5, bishop g5, queen e2, f takes e6, b takes f3, and now queen goes back. And at this point, I mean, it's just probably a draw. Knight f4 takes, bishop f4, bishop f5, nothing can be done, takes, opposite color bishops. The game ended in a draw in the following position. Let's get to the second game where Mr. Matthias Bluebaum played with black and played pattern defense. And we experienced knight d3 endgame, which was played a couple of times in match between Fabi and Magnus back in the day. Queen e2, queen e7, knight f4, c6, f3. And players transposed to the following endgame where Javokhir got some edge. And this was a critical position here where Javokhir could have played d5 and got a huge advantage, because now after c takes d5, it's actually quite bad because g3, then rook d1, and blacks have some problems along d file. So as opposed to that, we got knight e6, so g3 first, and knight e6, knight h3. When you get more space, you want to avoid trades happening on the board. d5, knight g5, bishop g6, bishop f1, bishop h3, knight g5 takes, and now knight f5. So the idea being is that knight cannot take, knight f5, probably knight h4 and try to play f4, f5. So takes, just like bishop c2, and two bishops on the board. f4, knight g7, king f3, bishop f2, and now not raiding the rook, but bishop e1, keeping one of the rooks on the board, so you potentially have h-file to attack. So g4, f5, so here, if takes, this one is attacked, so bishop g2 has to be played, and then even bishop f4 works. And then, I'm not sure if g5 works, because yeah, g takes h5 wins, but knight e6, and it is equal, takes, and something like rook f7 makes an easy draw. So on knight h5, rook h8, and now knight f6 is the idea. There was also bishop f5, which was played, g6, rook h5. Now if rook g6, rook f5, and suddenly white gets an extra pawn in the winning position. So we got king e6, rook h6, king f6, bishop e1, rook h7, rook g7, rook h6, rook g6, rook h7, and players agreed to a draw. The game between Anish and Fabi finished first. c4, knight e7, a little bit of novelty. People don't play it a lot on top level. Knight d2, knight c4, knight a3, bishop d2 takes, knight e7, castle, b4, takes, and c5. Bishop goes back, knight f5, knight b5, bishop b5 takes. Everything is traded off, knight goes to c5, rook d1, trades off the queens, rook d1 takes, he has open d-file, but nothing can be done. Rook d8, the idea being is that rook b6, there is rook d1, bishop f1, and knight f4. The idea is to go this way, king g2, yes, is an option. So knight d2, there is rook b7, this, check, and this is a draw because king f6, there is suddenly rook d7, and I mean it's still a draw, rook d2, rook b1. So f4, And now white cannot escape a rook trade, players agreed to a draw. And the game that lasted for the longest time in this round was the game between Andrey Esipenko and Hikaru Nakamura. Quite an interesting game, and that's a crucial moment where Hikaru played c4. Queen b6, rook b6, and bishop c4, knight e4, rook e2, f3 is played, now knight e3, rook e5. White are completely winning, so Hikaru has to get to d6, rook e5, knight c4 takes. And these endgames usually have a tendency for a draw, but in this game Hikaru had some problems to solve. Rook c4, rook a7, king f6, a5, rook c3, king f2, and now rook c2 is the only move that makes a draw. Let's say rook a3, white are already winning, a6, rook a2, this, and this. Now king c4, rook f3, rook c7, let's say rook g3, a7, this, king b5, f4, rook c6, king f5, rook a6. And white wins. So rook c2, king f3, rook c3, king f2, rook c2, king d3, and now the only move again makes a draw, rook g2. Rook f2 doesn't unfortunately make a draw because king f3 comes to the tempo and then we can push a pawn. So rook g2, rook a6, king d4, Andrey sacrifices another pawn, rook a7, a6, king f6, king f6, and he offered Hikaru a draw and Hikaru accepted. The point is there is no way to win, so let's say g5, and then I know king f5, g4, king g4, king goes to c8, king c7, it's king f5, king b6, pawn is taken, last trick, cannot take because of this, but you can just play this. And now rook b7, king a6, and that's just a draw. So as far as standings go after 2 rounds, Fabi first, Javokhir second, I mean basically tied for the first place, Fabi, Javokhir and Pragg, Wei Yi, Matthias made 2 draws, 4th and 5th, then Hikaru, Anish and Andrey Esipenko. So the third round pairings are Matthias, Andrey, Pragg, Javokhir, Fabiano, Wei Yi, and Hikaru, Anish. Let's see how it goes. Hope you enjoyed. See you in the recap of round number 3. Bye bye.